walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Assembly Hall. The space was so large that clouds formed near the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings filled the chamber, their strange forms creating a sea of colors, shapes, and sizes that would have terrified most humans. Kept her face calm and her steps steady. The human ambassador wore a simple black suit that looked plain next to the elaborate clothing and natural decorations of the alien delegates. Some creatures floated in energy fields. Others stood on multiple legs or moved with tentacles. A few existed as pure energy contained in crystal shells. Was the only being in the room that looked remotely human. At the center of the chamber sat 3 massive thrones. The largest belonged to War Prime or of the Empire. He stood 12 feet tall with 4 powerful arms covered in natural armor plates. His red eyes glowed as he watched approach. Beside him floated the ethereal Mindweaver Han, a being of pure thought contained in a shimmering cloud of light. The third throne held multiple forms that shifted and changed, the collective consciousness of the Nexus Coalition. Stopped at the designated spot and waited. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of translation devices. War Prime spoke first. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder. Human representative, you stand before the combined might of 847 civilizations. We have ruled this galaxy for millions of years. We have seen species rise and fall. Today, we speak to you about your people's future. Nodded politely, I'm listening. The ethereal Mindweaver's voice whispered directly into his mind. Your species has expanded beyond acceptable limits. You have claimed star systems without permission. You build colonies without regard for galactic law. This must end. The shifting forms of the Nexus Coalition spoke in unison, their voice cold and mechanical. Analysis confirms human expansion threatens established order. Immediate cessation of colonial activities required. Submission to galactic oversight mandatory. Waited for them to finish. The chamber buzzed with alien conversations in hundreds of languages. Most delegates seemed amused or bored. To them, this was a simple matter. Another young species would learn to obey, just like all the others. War Prime raised one massive hand for silence. We are generous rulers. We offer you a choice. Submit to our authority, abandon your illegal colonies, and accept limited space for your species, or face the consequences of defying the Galactic Assembly. Looked around the chamber. She saw creatures that could move planets with their thoughts, beings that controlled energy itself, species that had mastered technologies beyond human understanding. Any rational person would be terrified. Any sane leader would immediately accept the offer. Smiled. That's quite an offer, she said. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. I need to discuss this with my government. Could we have a 72-hour recess? The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. Delegates made noises that ranged from laughter to confusion. The translation devices worked overtime as thousands of beings expressed their shock. War Prime's 4 arms flexed. You wish to delay, to beg Earth for mercy. Shook her head. I wish to consult with my people about our response. 72 hours should be enough. The ethereal Mindweaver probed surface thoughts and found only calm determination. This confused the ancient being. Most species showed fear, anger, or desperate calculation when faced with galactic ultimatums. The humans showed something else entirely. The Nexus Coalition's processors ran quick calculations. Previous species required between 0.3 and 4.7 standard hours to accept terms. Human request exceeds normal parameters. Waited patiently while the 3 leaders discussed among themselves. Their private communications involved energy patterns and thought-sharing beyond human ability to intercept. Finally, War Prime spoke. Very well, 72 hours, but know this: human delay will not change reality. You face 847 worlds united against you. Your choice is simple: submit or be destroyed. bowed formally. "Thank you for your patience. I'll have our response ready when we reconvene." She turned and walked toward the exit. Every step was measured and calm. She did not hurry or show any sign of fear. The alien delegates watched her go with growing confusion. Near the chamber doors passed a group of younger delegates from recently contacted species. She heard one of them whisper to another, "She acts like she has options." Paused and looked at the young alien. It was a species that had submitted to the assembly only 50 years ago. "We always have options," she said quietly. "The question is whether we're brave enough to use them." The eyes widened. Other nearby delegates turned to stare, continued walking. Once outside the chamber, made her way to the human diplomatic quarters. The space station Convergence Prime was massive beyond belief, housing millions of beings from across the galaxy. The human section was small and simple compared to the elaborate areas given to major species. Entered her private office and activated the quantum communication array. The call to Earth would take several hours to connect due to the distances involved. While she waited, she recorded a detailed message about the meeting. "The assembly has made their position clear," she said to the recording device. "They want total submission. They expect us to abandon our colonies and accept whatever space they decide to give us. They think we're like every other species they've encountered." Paused and looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, humanities. Somewhere else were the 47 human colonies that the aliens wanted them to abandon. Good people building new lives on new worlds. "They want to see what we're made of," continued. "I think it's time we showed them." She completed her message and sent it toward Earth. Then she sat back in her chair and began reviewing files about human colony defenses. The aliens thought they knew what humanity was capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. 3 hours later, the quantum communicator chimed with an incoming priority message from Earth. Smiled as she read the response. It was exactly what she had hoped to see. The next 72 hours would change the galaxy forever. The emergency meeting room in Geneva was quiet except for the soft humming of security shields and communication equipment. President Sarah sat at the head of the table, her dark eyes focused on the holographic display showing's recorded message. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth: General, Admiral Wei, Doctor, and 6 other members of the Global Defense Council. His voice filled the room as her message played for the 3rd time. "They want total submission. They expect us to abandon our colonies and accept whatever space they decide to give us." President paused the recording and looked around the table. Comments. General spoke first. His weathered face showed no emotion. "The aliens made one mistake. They assume we're like other species they've conquered." Admiral Wei nodded. "They see young species as weak species. They don't understand what made us strong." Doctor, Director of Colonial Affairs, pulled up a different holographic display. "Let me show you what the aliens actually want us to abandon." The display showed a 3-dimensional map of human space. 47 star systems glowed blue, connected by trade routes and communication lines. Each system contained at least one human colony. Some had multiple worlds with millions of people. New Sparta, Doctor pointed to a star system near the edge of human space. Population, 4 million, primary industries, mining and agriculture. That's what the aliens see. The display changed, showing the same system with additional details. Here's what they don't see. New Sparta transformed on the screen. The simple mining stations revealed themselves as fortified positions. The agricultural settlements showed hidden weapon depots. The civilian transport ships displayed military-grade armor and concealed weapon systems. Every human colony follows the same pattern, Doctor continued. We learned from Earth's history. Every settlement that survived did so because it could defend itself. President leaned forward. Show them the real numbers. Doctor touched her control pad. New data appeared on the screen. Total human military assets as known by the Galactic Assembly, approximately 50,000 personnel, 200 ships, minimal industrial capacity. The display changed again. Actual human military capacity, 4 million trained personnel, 8,000 ships, and industrial production equal to most major galactic powers. General smiled grimly. The aliens think we're farmers and miners playing at being soldiers. They don't know we're soldiers who learn to farm and mine. Admiral Wei stood and walked to the display. They also don't understand our ship designs. Every human vessel can fight. Our cargo ships carry weapons. Our passenger liners have armor. Our mining platforms double as weapons platforms. President studied the data. Doctor, remind me about the Colonial Defense Protocol. Doctor's eyes gleamed. Every human world can become a fortress within 48 hours. We have hidden supply depots, backup communication networks, and emergency production facilities. Most importantly, we have something the aliens have never encountered. Which is a population that expects to fight. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Doctor meant. Other species in the galaxy had evolved past warfare. They had achieved peace through technology, philosophy, or simply by avoiding conflict. Humans were different. General pulled up historical files. Earth's entire history is conflict. We fought each other for thousands of years. We competed for resources, territory, survival. Every human child grows up learning about war through games, sports, stories, and entertainment. Admiral Wei added, our business practices are competitive warfare. Our sports simulate combat. Our video games teach tactical thinking. Even our children's playground activities involve strategy and conflict. President nodded slowly. The aliens evolved past the need to fight. We evolved to be better at fighting. Doctor brought up another display showing communication intercepts from the Galactic Assembly. They're confused by its response. Every other species either immediately surrendered or fled to the outer rim. We asked for time to think. General laughed. They think we're buying time to panic. They don't realize we're buying time to prepare. Admiral Wei returned to her seat. The question is, are we actually ready for war with 847 civilizations? The room became very quiet. President looked at each person around the table. These were the people who would decide humanity's fate. Doctor spoke carefully. We've been preparing for this since first contact. Every colony placement, every trade agreement, every diplomatic meeting has been part of a larger strategy. We knew this day would come. She activated a new display showing the galaxy with human colonies marked. Look at our expansion pattern. We didn't choose the richest worlds or the most comfortable planets. We chose defensible positions, asteroid fields that hide our industry, worlds with rare minerals needed for weapons, systems that control important trade routes. General pointed to specific locations. We also chose worlds the aliens consider worthless, high radiation zones where our equipment works but theirs fails, gravity wells that mess up their faster-than-light travel, planets with magnetic fields that disrupt their sensors. Admiral Wei smiled. We've been building fortress worlds in places they would never look. President studied the tactical situation. What about allies? Doctor's expression became very serious. We've been quietly contacted by 37 species that are currently under assembly control. They're not happy with their situation. Are they willing to fight? They're willing to fight if they believe they can win. General leaned back in his chair. The aliens have one more problem they don't know about. They think conquest means controlling the strongest species and letting the others follow. They never learned to actually fight. Admiral Wei nodded. Their last real war was 10,000 years ago. Since then, they've only dealt with species that surrender immediately. They have no experience with prolonged conflict. President made her decision. Doctor, send a coded message to all human colonies. Begin implementing colonial defense protocol immediately. General, Admiral Wei, I want full military readiness within 60 hours. She paused and looked around the table one more time. Are we all agreed? We reject the ultimatum. Every person in the room nodded. President activated the quantum communicator to contact. The message would reach Convergence Prime in just a few hours. This is President. We've reviewed the Assembly's demands. Our response is simple: no. Humanity does not submit. Humanity does not surrender. If they want war, we'll give them war. She ended the recording and sat back in her chair. In 72 hours would deliver humanity's answer to the Galactic Assembly. The aliens expected submission or desperate pleading. They were going to get something very different. Something they had never seen before. Something that would change the galaxy forever. Walked into the Galactic Assembly Hall exactly 72 hours after leaving it. The massive chamber buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread that the young human species was about to give their answer to the Assembly's ultimatum. Most delegates expected either immediate surrender or desperate begging for mercy. Looked different than she had 3 days ago. She walked with the same calm confidence, but something had changed in her eyes. Where before there had been diplomatic caution, now there was something that made several psychic species uncomfortable when they tried to read her emotions. War Prime or dominated his throne, all 4 arms crossed in a display of power. The ethereal mind weaver hand floated in anticipation, eager to witness another species accepting their proper place in the galactic order. The multiple forms of the Nexus Coalition shifted and calculated, processing probability matrices for various surrender scenarios. Stopped at the center of the chamber and waited. The thousands of alien delegates gradually fell silent. Human Ambassador, War Prime or's voice boomed through the hall. You have had time to consult with your people. What is Earth's response to our generous offer? Smiled. It was not a diplomatic smile. It was not a nervous smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment their entire life. The United Earth government has carefully reviewed your suggestions, said. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. Our answer is no. The hall erupted in surprised sounds. Delegates made noises of shock, confusion, and disbelief. Several translation devices overloaded trying to process the mix of languages expressing amazement. War Prime or's red eyes blazed. You refuse. Do you understand what you face? 847 worlds united against you. Smile widened. We're aware of the numbers. The question is, are you aware of what those numbers mean when you're fighting humans? The ethereal mind weaver attempted to probe thoughts more deeply. What it found made the ancient being recoil in shock. Instead of fear, desperation, or even anger, his mind blazed with tactical analysis, strategic planning, and something the mind weaver had never encountered in any species: excitement at the prospect of impossible odds. Explain your meaning, the Nexus Coalition demanded, their processing units working to understand the humans' response. Looked around the chamber, making eye contact with delegates from dozens of species. You want to know what it means to fight humans? Let me explain. She activated a small holographic projector. Images appeared above the chamber floor showing Earth's history. Battles, wars, conflicts spanning thousands of years. This is humanity's story. While your species were evolving past the need for conflict, we were perfecting it. Every human generation has known war. Every human child grows up learning strategy through games. Every human adult practices competition in business, sports, and daily life. The images changed to show human colonies. You think we expanded carelessly. You think we chose our worlds randomly. Look closer. The display showed new Sparta's true defensive capabilities, then new Moscow's hidden weapon systems, then New Johannesburg's underground factories. One by one, the real nature of human colonies revealed itself. War Prime or stood from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. You show us preparations. This proves only that you know you are weak. Laughed, the sound echoed through the hall like a challenge. Weak. War Prime, you've made one fundamental error. You assume that because we're young, we're weak. You assume that because we build defenses, we're afraid. She gestured to the holographic display. We don't build defenses because we're afraid of you. We build them because we're preparing to hunt you. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the background hum of technology seemed to quiet as words sank in. You see, continued, you've never fought a species like us. When other species face overwhelming odds, they surrender or flee. Do you know what humans do when we face overwhelming odds? She paused, looking directly at War Prime. We get excited. The ethereal Mindweaver's form flickered as it tried to process what it was sensing from his mind. The human was not bluffing. She genuinely looked forward to fighting impossible odds. Continued her explanation. You have 847 worlds. Wonderful. That means 47 human colonies get to fight 18 worlds each. Those are good odds for us. Impossible, the Nexus Coalition stated. Mathematical analysis indicates. Your math is wrong, interrupted. Because your math assumes we fight like you. It assumes we follow your rules. It assumes we care about fair fights. She activated another display showing human military doctrine. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. We fight dirty. We fight in ways that will make you regret starting the fight in the first place. War Prime or's four arms flexed. You speak boldly for a species that has never faced galactic warfare. His expression became very serious. War Prime, with respect, you have no idea what you're talking about. We've been fighting galactic warfare since before we left our home world. We just fought it against each other. The display showed human military history in detail. We've had world wars. Wars fought on every continent simultaneously. Wars fought in the air, on the ground, under the sea, and in space around our planet. Wars using every possible weapon and strategy. She looked around the chamber at the shocked faces. You've had peace for thousands of years. We've had war for thousands of years. Which of us do you think is better at it? The ethereal Mindweaver tried once more to read deeper thoughts, and immediately. The human mind contained layers of tactical thinking, strategic planning, and combat analysis that hurt to observe. It was like trying to stare into a weapon that was actively targeting you. Furthermore, continued, you've made another critical mistake. You assume we're alone. She activated a new display showing communication logs. We've been in contact with 37 species currently under your control. Species that remember what freedom felt like. Species that have been waiting for someone to stand up to you. War Prime or's confidence began to waver. Those species are loyal to the Assembly. Smile returned, colder than before. Those species are terrified of you, but they're more afraid of staying enslaved than they are of fighting for freedom. Guess who's been teaching them how to fight? The chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Delegates from controlling species suddenly realized that their subject peoples might not be as loyal as they had assumed. The Nexus Coalition's processors worked frantically. Request clarification. Human intentions regarding galactic conflict. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. Our intentions are simple. You wanted to see our position on war. Here it is. She stood, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. We choose war. We choose to fight every single one of your 847 worlds if necessary. We choose to show this galaxy what happens when you threaten human freedom. She paused, letting her words sink in. You wanted to know what we're ready for. We're ready for everything. We're ready for a fight that will last years. We're ready for a war that spans the galaxy. We're ready to teach every species in this chamber what humans do when someone tries to make us kneel." His final words echoed through the stunned silence. "Bring it on." Admiral of the Imperial Fleet commanded 200 of the finest warships in the galaxy. His orders were simple: attack the human colony of New Sparta, destroy their defenses, and force them to surrender. The Galactic Assembly expected this would be a quick demonstration of power that would bring humanity to its knees. Admiral was confident. His fleet had conquered dozens of worlds. The ships under his command could level mountains and boil oceans. 200 vessels against a single human colony seemed like massive overkill. He was about to learn how wrong he was. New Sparta hung in space like a small blue marble. The planet showed signs of human settlement: cities, farms, mining operations, and orbital stations. Intelligence reports indicated a population of 4 million humans engaged in agriculture and mineral extraction. The planet's defenses appeared minimal: a few orbital platforms and what looked like civilian patrol ships. "Target the orbital stations first," Admiral commanded. "Destroy their defenses, then demand surrender." The fleet moved into attack formation. Energy weapons charged, missile tubes loaded. 200 warships prepared to demonstrate galactic power against a simple farming colony. The first salvo of energy beams lanced toward New Sparta's orbital platforms. Admiral expected to see the stations vaporize. Instead, shimmering energy shields absorbed the attacks. The platforms not only survived, they returned fire with weapons that cut through armor like paper. "Impossible," Admiral muttered. "Those are civilian platforms." His tactical officers' eyes widened as sensor data flooded in. "Admiral, those platforms are showing military-grade shields and weapons. They're not civilian installations." Before Admiral could respond, New Sparta's mining operations revealed their true nature. What had looked like simple excavation equipment transformed into massive artillery cannons. Weapons that had been hidden underground rose from concealed positions. The entire planet bristled with defensive systems that had been invisible minutes before. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Admiral shouted. But the humans weren't finished. The civilian patrol ships shed their disguises. Fake hull plating fell away to reveal heavily armed cruisers. Cargo containers opened to deploy fighter squadrons. What had looked like a lightly defended farming world turned into a fortress bristling with enough firepower to challenge a full battle fleet. Governor Jake stood in New Sparta's command center, watching the alien fleet struggle to respond to his planet's defenses. The former Earth Marine had been preparing for this moment since the colony was founded. "All batteries fire at will," he commanded. "Show these aliens what happens when they threaten human worlds." The planet's surface erupted with weapon fire. Orbital defense platforms launched missiles that moved too fast for alien sensors to track. Fighter squadrons piloted by humans who had grown up playing combat simulations tore through alien formations with impossible precision. Admiral watched in growing horror as his fleet took massive damage. Ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by what he had thought was a farming colony. His flagship shook under concentrated fire from weapons that shouldn't exist on a civilian world. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His intelligence officer checked and rechecked the data. "Admiral, our information was completely wrong. This isn't a farming colony. This is a military fortress disguised as a farming colony." "Sir," the communications officer's voice cracked with panic, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system, multiple contacts moving toward us." On the tactical display, new icons appeared. Ships emerged from asteroid belts where they had been hidden. Stealth systems deactivated to reveal human warships that had been waiting in ambush. Mining stations revealed themselves as weapons platforms. The entire New Sparta system was one giant trap. Admiral realized he had made a terrible mistake. This wasn't an attack on a defenseless colony. This was a carefully planned ambush by humans who had been expecting galactic warfare. "All ships retreat to hyperspace," he ordered. But it was too late. Human ships moved to block the retreat routes. The aliens found themselves surrounded by an enemy that fought with tactics they had never encountered. Human pilots flew with aggressive precision that broke alien formations. Human gunners targeted weak points with deadly accuracy. Human commanders coordinated attacks that seemed to predict every alien move. Governor opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the alien fleet. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had expected this fight and prepared for it. "This is Governor Jake of New Sparta. You came here to intimidate us. You thought you were attacking farmers and miners. You were wrong." Admiral's flagship shuddered under another barrage. Half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. "We are farmers and miners," continued, "but we're also soldiers. Every human who chose to live on a frontier world knew this day might come. We've been ready for years." The battle continued for 6 hours. When it ended, Admiral's fleet was completely destroyed. Some ships had been vaporized. Others were captured intact when human boarding parties overwhelmed their crews. A few ships managed to escape, but only because the humans allowed witnesses to return to the assembly. Governor stood on his command deck, watching the cleanup operations. His planet had taken some damage, but the colony survived. More importantly, they had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. He activated the general communication system that would broadcast to every inhabited world in known space. "This is New Sparta. We were attacked by 200 alien warships. New Sparta stands. Come and take it." The message reached the Galactic Assembly within hours. War Prime stared at the battle reports in disbelief. A single human colony had destroyed a fleet that could conquer most star systems. But the real shock came when Admiral Sarah's colonial defense fleet arrived at New Sparta 6 hours after the battle ended. The aliens watching through long-range sensors couldn't believe what they saw. 50 human warships emerged from hyperspace. These weren't converted civilian vessels or hidden platforms. These were pure military ships designed for one purpose: war. They moved with precision that spoke of constant training and preparation. War Prime accessed the Galactic Intelligence Network to find more information about human military capabilities. What he discovered made his blood freeze. Every human colony had defenses like New Sparta. Every human, civilian ship could fight. Every human settlement was actually a fortress. Humanity had been building a military infrastructure that rivaled the greatest powers in the galaxy, and they had done it while pretending to be peaceful farmers and traders. The ethereal Mindweaver attempted to predict the outcome of continued warfare with humanity. For the first time in its ancient existence, its precognitive abilities failed. The future became a chaotic storm of possibilities, none of them good for the Galactic Assembly. The Nexus Coalition's quantum computers ran probability calculations and reached a conclusion that fighting humans didn't just risk defeat, it risked the complete collapse of galactic civilization. Back on New Sparta, Governor received a message from Earth. Admiral Sarah's face appeared on his communication screen. "Jake, you did good. The whole galaxy is watching now. They know we're not backing down." Smiled grimly. "Admiral, they wanted to test us. I hope they learned something useful." "Oh, they learned something," Admiral replied. "They learned that humans don't just fight wars, we win them." Across the galaxy, species that had been controlled by the Assembly for centuries heard the news of New Sparta's victory. For the first time in generations, they began to hope that freedom might be possible. The test was over. The aliens had learned what humanity was capable of. They were about to learn much more. The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly convened in chaos. Delegates who had spent thousands of years believing in their absolute power now faced reports that shattered their understanding of reality. The destruction of Admiral's fleet had sent shockwaves through every major civilization. War Prime or paced in front of his throne, all four arms gesturing as he spoke to the assembly. One human colony destroyed 200 of our finest ships. How is this possible? The ethereal mind weaver flickered with uncertainty. Our seers attempted to predict the outcome of full warfare with humanity. The visions broke. We cannot see victory against these beings. The Nexus Coalition's multiple forms shifted rapidly, their quantum processors struggling with unprecedented calculations. Analysis indicates 73% probability of galactic civilization collapse if warfare continues. Human combat efficiency exceeds all known parameters. Stood once again at the center of the chamber, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Where before the aliens had looked at her with amused superiority, now there was fear. Real fear of what humanity represented. "You wanted a demonstration," said calmly. "New Sparta gave you one. Are you satisfied?" War Prime Or's red eyes blazed with fury and confusion. "Your species has hidden military assets beyond our understanding. You have violated every treaty regarding colony militarization." Smiled coldly. "We haven't violated anything. Your treaties assumed we would think like you. You assumed we would separate military and civilian activities like civilized species. You never considered that we might not be civilized." She activated her holographic projector again. This time it showed intelligence reports from across human space. Every human world revealed similar defensive capabilities to New Sparta. Mining operations that were actually weapons factories. Trade ships that could fight battle cruisers. Civilian populations trained in military tactics. "You see," continued, "you made one fundamental error. You assumed we would grow weak and peaceful like every other species. You forgot that we evolved from predators." The chamber buzzed with fearful discussions as delegates realized the scope of their mistake. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had built their entire civilization around the expectation of conflict. But wasn't finished. "Now let me tell you about our allies." The holographic display changed to show communication logs spanning years. Secret meetings, weapons transfers, training programs, and strategic planning sessions. The evidence painted a picture that terrified every controlling species in the assembly. For the past 5 years, human advisors have been working with 37 species currently under your control. We've been sharing technology, tactics, and strategic planning. We've been preparing them for this moment. War Prime Or stepped forward. "Those species are loyal to the assembly. They would never." His words were cut off as alerts began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency communications flooded in from across the galaxy. The massive display screens around the chamber lit up with reports of simultaneous uprisings on dozens of worlds. The rebels had seized their orbital defenses using human-designed weapons. The resistance had destroyed 3 assembly fleets with tactics learned from human military advisors. The colonies had declared independence and were defending themselves with modified human technology. Watched the chaos with satisfaction. "You wanted to know what humanity is capable of. This is what we're capable of. We don't just fight wars. We teach others how to fight for their freedom." The ethereal Mindweaver's form began to destabilize as it processed the implications. Impossible. A galaxy-spanning rebellion cannot succeed against established order. His voice cut through the panic like a blade. "You keep using that word. Impossible. Let me explain something about humans. We don't believe in impossible. When faced with impossible odds, we find a way to win anyway." She gestured to the chaos on the screens around them. "You controlled these species through fear. You made them believe resistance was hopeless. We taught them something different. We taught them that freedom is worth any risk." War Prime or watched his empire crumble in real time as reports came in. Rebellion was spreading faster than assembly forces could respond. Worse, the rebels were fighting with coordinated strategy and advanced weapons that shouldn't exist. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long have you been planning this?" His expression became serious. "Since first contact. The moment we learned about the Galactic Assembly, we knew this day would come. You see, humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war." The Nexus Coalition's processors ran desperate calculations. Query: terms for cessation of hostilities, requirements for human withdrawal from rebellion activities. Laughed. The sound echoed through the vast chamber like the cry of a hunting hawk. "Withdrawal? You still don't understand. This isn't a rebellion we started. This is a revolution we inspired." She looked around the chamber at the thousands of frightened aliens. "You created this situation. You built an empire based on fear and oppression. You forgot that every species you conquered still remembered what freedom felt like. We just reminded them." The main display showed the galaxy-wide scope of the uprising. Green dots marked worlds in rebellion. Red dots showed assembly forces under attack. Blue dots indicated human fleets moving to support the rebels. The pattern was clear. The revolution was spreading faster than it could be stopped. War Prime or slumped in his throne. "What do you want?" His voice carried clearly through the silent chamber. "We want what every sentient being deserves: freedom, self-determination, the right to choose our own destiny without interference from self-appointed galactic overlords." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But most of all, we want you to understand something important. You made one critical mistake when you decided to threaten humanity." The chamber waited in tense silence. "You assumed we were like you. You assumed we would be reasonable. You assumed we would accept limits on our freedom." His voice grew stronger. "You forgot that humans are the species that looked at a planet full of predators and decided we belonged at the top of the food chain." She gestured to the chaos around them. "You forgot that humans are the species that faced extinction-level events and survived them. You forgot that humans are the species that took wooden ships across unknown oceans because we were curious about what was on the other side." His final words rang with absolute conviction. "You forgot that humans are the species that looks at impossible odds and says, 'Challenge accepted.'" War Prime or looked at with something approaching respect mixed with terror. "What are you?" Smile could have frozen stars. "We're humans. We're the species that you taught never to back down, and you know what the best part is?" She leaned forward, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. "We were right." The screens around the chamber continued to show the spreading revolution. Dozens of species that had been oppressed were fighting for their freedom with human support and guidance. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Galactic Assembly was ending. The age of freedom was beginning. And humanity had made it possible by doing what they did best, refusing to accept that anything was impossible.